Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pull Up Trey podcast, wherein I, Samson Folk, am joined by my dear friend Trevon Heath, i.e. Trey, and he pulls up. We talk about stuff, and during draft season, we always talk about draft prospects because he knows more than I do. He shares his infinite bounty of wisdom with me. A quick thing before we get into 6 exciting new prospects that, yes, we hope this episode bangs because it includes Zach Edey and Bronny James. Those are the algorithm kings. There is a draft party. We on the last episode, we lamented the fact that there's not gonna be a draft party. However, there is the night of the draft at Three Brewers. Raptors Republic is hosting, no fee. It's free. I'll be there. You want to come watch some draft stuff with us? Hang out. We will be doing a podcast from there afterwards to talk about who the Raptors are picking. If you feel like hanging out with people who love the Raptors and basketball, that'll be there. Like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. Unless you're listening on the podcast feed, which in this, just hey. Okay, everybody, we're here to talk draft stuff. Trey, actually, how you doing? Are you good?
I'm doing good. A long week of rock climbing, a few pop vessels, real man stuff. I've been feeling the manliest I've ever felt.
Are you feeling any more distinguished with the glasses?
People said they take me more seriously, which I don't know if that's a compliment or insult, to be honest.
I
But
wonder if there's. Actually, I won't get into any of that. So, anyway, you're having a good time in your life. I'm glad to hear it. I don't know. We don't just do the podcast. We're friends. We hang
yeah,
out. It feels not real, you
yeah.
know? I'll say this because under every podcast, people complain. We are simply highlighting prospects that we were asked to highlight. This is not us being hand selecting these prospects. If there's a guy you're like, why aren't they still talking about Bub Carrington? Already talked about him. If you think we should be talking about Khalil Ware, and yes, it is Khalil, we already talked about him. We got 6 new guys. The names on the docket: Jacoby Walter, Zach Edey, Jared McCain, Bronny James. That's right, Bronny James, Devin Carter, and Cam Spencer. Who do you want to start with, Trey?
Well, we should save the big ones to the end. Let's talk about Bronny. Why not?
You want to front load with Bronny James? Okay,
Potentially.
yes. Rick Carlisle just said that he expects Bronny to go earlier than 50th. Does that pass the sniff test for you?
Yeah, I like my thought is like high second round.
Okay, and I'm just curious, how much do you think the politics of Bronny James plays into his draft stock? Because I'll read the numbers.
Yeah.
Freshman out of USC, has a concerning medical history that isn't his fault whatsoever,
Mhm.
but underwent something quite serious. He's 6'2", 210 pounds with a 6'7" wingspan, so not bad there. He averaged 5 points, 3 boards, 2 assists on 36% from the field and 27% from three. We'll get into the appeal of him as a player, which there is, and as an NBA player, but curious of your thoughts.
I think for every like non-Laker team, like maybe 5 to 10%, like with someone like at his range, he's likely going to spend time in the G League for maybe a season, maybe possibly 2 seasons, and that's not moving the needle. That's not selling more tickets. Like I'm sure the name maybe like has correlation to additional dollars, but like there's a good player in there, and I think he's like a draftable player. I don't think he's. We've seen other Michael Jordan's son didn't get an NBA roster spot, and he was considered the greatest player at the time. But and
So you go
yeah,
ahead,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I was just saying, like being an NBA kid obviously probably has some advantages, but I don't think it earns you a roster spot.
Yeah. Well, he's not an NBA kid, but I'll use this as a jumping off point. 5 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists is completely underwhelming. He performed better in the draft scrimmages than he did at USC, I would say. And the big thing here is that Bronny James was projected as like a 3-and-D prospect, even for those people who really liked his game. There wasn't a ton people were seeing in his on-ball craft. There wasn't anything like that. He was supposed to be a guy who is really quite athletic, moves really well on the floor, who you could stick on opposing ones and twos, probably not expecting anybody to guard up. He would be sticky on ball. He would work hard off ball. He would be a plus on defense, and he would bang triples. That was the sell. Early looks at USC, that was what it was supposed to be. He shot 27% from three. I'm a believer that the shot comes around.
Yeah.
To what effect, I'm not exactly sure. How do you feel about the other aspect of his two-word descriptor, the D aspect?
I'm very bullish on his defense. He's really strong. He's a really good mover, and he's athletic. You saw that in the combine scrimmages as well. Um, I think a lot of it obviously depends on the shot. He's not someone that you're going to expect to guard opposing threes. He just simply just doesn't have the size for it. He's one of those unique players where he truly it has the game of a two but the body of a one, and
Mm-hmm.
his ability to shoot is going to tell the tale. But I think the defense and his ability probably to finish within transition will probably be his highest selling points.
And on top of that, too, there is just to list these. We have guards or similarly sized guys here. Jacoby Walters listed at 195, McCain 200, Devin Carter 190, Cam Spencer 205. All these guys are bigger than Bronny, but Bronny is 210.
Mm-hmm.
Bronny, a lot of college guards you worry about, especially like their ability to take bumps and defend at the point of attack. I think that's the easiest aspect of Bronny's game to project going forward. Of course, it wouldn't be elite or it probably wouldn't even be good. Maybe not even mediocre to begin with, but you're expecting G League reps. I believe in a 3-point shot of some sort coming around. I believe in the defense to some degree. And I do think that like he plays well in transition. All those things merit a second round draft pick even without all of the politics coming into it. However, we're going to talk about another guy too who might even go undrafted, who I think merits a second round draft pick. It's flat. We don't know what's going to happen, but any final thoughts on Bronny James? And I guess 31 would be the consideration. 31 seems a bit rich for me. What do you think would have to happen for the Raptors to select Bronny?
I think and shout out to Nabil, like with the extra day, people are going to be able to reshuffle their boards and look for who they want. And there's probably going to be teams, the Raptors are probably going to get several offers heading into day two. And there may be a situation where they realize the way the board's shaking out, the guy they want at 31, they can get at 36 or maybe 40. Maybe that guy is Bronny. They trade down, they recoup maybe an additional second round pick or another prospect, and they get Bronny plus somebody else as well.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe you're buying a second rounder. Although
Yeah.
I don't know what the politics of Bronny's selection because that is a factor. Not really for what we're discussing here because it's hard for us to project anything, but it matters. There's stuff going on there, and that will help grease the wheels for what happens in the second round with him. Um, in the first episode we did, we talked about a lot of guys who I think the average viewer perceived to be quite late. We talked about them at 19 and 31. It's kind of a mishmash there. A lot of people expected the guys we talked about to be available in the 40s or something. In this collection of guys, when we're talking about Walter, Carter, McCain, Edey, 3 out of these guys could jump into the lottery probably. Well, all 4 could end up in the lottery maybe, depending on how it swings. Of those 4, who do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Carter.
Okay, Devin Carter. The numbers. He is a junior out of Providence, so a little bit older. He's 6'3", 190 is kind of what he's been listed at. 20 points per game, 9 boards a game, which is pretty wild. 3.5 assists, 47% from the field goal range, 37% from 3. He takes a lot of free throws. He takes a lot of threes. He shoots 65% at the rim with a lot of craft, and I think he was 84th or 86th percentile as a pick and roll ball handler in the NCAA. He's a very accomplished scorer. He makes good reads against blitzes. He has a funky ass jumper. Like it reminds me of it's kind of like Jason Tatum's where it's like that really close lift to the
Yeah.
body and like the fling at the top. But he hits them. It looks ugly. And I think he hit it was 18 or 19 threes that were considered deep threes. So at least 18 NBA threes during his NCAA season with Providence. Devin Carter, thoughts?
Devin Carter is a Trey my guy selection. I was trying to coin my
Some
own.
branding, sure,
you know,
yeah.
you know, but I really like him. He's strong at the point of attack. Like 190 seems crazy for the level of like strength that he has at the point of attack.
He does look bigger than
EP
190.
190, but
Yeah.
I guess he's really long. He uses his size really well against opposing guards, and the really good thing about him is he uses his defense to turn it into offense, and he creates a lot of transition opportunities for his team. On the defensive end, he helps at the point of attack. He also can help with your backline defense and recovery as well because he's a really good leaper. Um, Offensively, I think that's probably where the biggest questions are. One, his shooting. This was his first year where he really shot the ball well. There isn't a lot of history of him being a quality shooter, so that would probably be the biggest swing. He gets to the rim really well when given a closeout. He's really athletic. He can jump and turn those often into dunks, which is a really good thing. You don't see that from guards and free throws as well.
Especially
Um,
Raptors guards. There's
yes,
not been a dunking guard in Toronto
yeah.
for what do you go back to like Jared Bayless?
Jared, I can't visualize one Jared Bayless dunk to be honest.
He got a few of them.
Yeah, I was gonna
Definitely
say like
one
Damon.
against the Portland Trailblazers.
I was gonna say like Damon Stoudemire maybe.
Yeah, it's
But
just they haven't had that pop,
yeah,
really.
which would be really cool to see. I think the in between game right now he's a three or layup type player, and with his size, he's going to probably I would assume that a lot of teams would put wings on him just because he doesn't have the necessary dribble where he's a opposing threat. So he's going to need to be able to get an in between game, shoot more mid range jumpers, or add additional craft from there because he won't be able to bully some of those smaller guards that he was playing against in college. But overall, I think he you put him in, he's going to be able to win minutes for you, and he might have the ability to scale up and become a starter for you one day.
He's starting to get like top 10
Yeah.
buzz. When we talked about him, he was probably when we first talked about him with
Mhm.
Josh, I think he was aggressively between like 15 and 25.
Yeah.
He's, you know, again, having a lot of numbers is a really good thing. Having a lot of volume, having a lot of tape is a really good thing. And Devin Carter, it pops off. One thing I wonder about, I think he makes a lot of good decisions playmaking in the perimeter. And like when he gets blitzed, when he sees pressure, he's really good at using an escape dribble and taking a negative dribble and making the right passing read. What I didn't see that much of outside of like a split occasionally was seeing a lot of pressure and maintaining his dribble positively and
Mhm.
then creating from there. That's what I wonder about with defenders at the next level, how that looks, because the pick and roll and transition was basically that's like how Devin Carter made his money. That was how he achieved success as a guard with Providence. And I wonder that in between stuff, how he starts to make it work there. That's
Yeah.
an
Agreed.
interesting aspect. And the 3 point shot, because he was good as a spot up 3 point shooter this past season, but it is a little bit funky and it does have to happen at the next level. And he is kind of like the interesting thing is that I think he has more juice defensively than like the two-way aspect of his game is one of the better ones in the whole draft,
Yeah.
I would say.
100%.
Like, I don't know if he goes top 10, but if you're looking at the sole output of like two-way impact, I think he's probably like, could be like a top 7 player in the draft. I don't know if that translates to the NBA, but he brings on both sides. I can't remember who said it, if it was you or Josh, but I think it was Josh who said if there's a prospect that shoots good in this class, they typically don't defend well. We'll get to you, Cam Spencer. And if there's a prospect who defends well, they typically don't shoot that well, Mr. Castle. Like it's just like or Dillingham or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just a lot of stuff up in the air. Devin Carter, though, I think is firmly out of the Raptors' range. However, there has been talk, speculation about the Raptors trying to trade up. Now you could throw a dart at 30 teams. All teams talk about trading up.
Yeah.
All teams like a guy above their draft spot. All teams talk about trading back. So I can say, report definitively, the Raptors are both interested in trading up and trading back if a package suits them. Who knows if they might be in a position? Do you have any other thoughts on Devin Carter?
I think where he gets selected, I think, is a big dependent on like the archetype of the player. Because like at the guard spot, that's it's a spot where it requires so much creation and so much on ball usage. And for him, I don't see that as a long term role for him. He would like, for example, he would be really good next to Luca. He wouldn't be asked to do much.
Mm.
He'd be able to attack closeouts, shoot threes, and would help him at the point of attack. If he's put in a position where he needs to be the team's starting guard, I think that's probably a bit too much. But I think he'll fit well along another opposing guard who can take a lot of that usage, and he could make up for it on the defensive end.
What do you think about? Because anytime we talk about the Raptors, we talk about the looming Emmanuel Quickly thing,
Yeah,
where Emmanuel Quickly ideally probably is somebody who doesn't guard the opposing one, especially if they're a good point guard.
yeah.
You don't want him guarding that many, possessions like that. What do you think of Devin Carter potentially being a guy who steps in and is able to do that? While I don't, maybe we have different ideas about Emmanuel Quickly's ultimate amount of usage or whatever. But what do you think about that fit?
Defensively, it makes a lot of sense. You put Devin Carter on opposing ones, or the primary ball handler in general, and he can, in possessions where you would have to switch, he can guard up and guard bigger players because he's that strong. I think offensively, they both are situated in the same way where you would probably want them orbiting around the main ball handler and not running pick and rolls consistently. I think that would be the challenge offensively.
Yeah. I think if he falls, I'd be like,
Yeah.
pick that guy right now. That happened with Grady. And anything we talked about Grady. We didn't really discuss him as an option at 13. We thought he would be scooped up before then. Obviously, he fell, and the Raptors, based on what I understand, went off their board. Like they said, oh, Grady's available. We're picking Grady Dick. That wasn't what they expected to have happen. Let's talk about a big man then. Zach Edey, who was before the NCAA season started, was seen as like kind of this boutique little second round flyer. He was the best player in college basketball by some measure. He is a very dominant low post presence. Will he be dominant immediately in the NBA in the low post? I doubt it. Will he be effective right away? Probably. Does he struggle with double teams? Yes. Will the pressure and extra size thrown at him at the NBA level probably vex him? Yes. Is he a better mover than people thought? Yes. He out-tested Donovan Clingan in basically every measurable at the combine. He was faster, he moved quicker, all that good kind of stuff. He shot, 14 of 25 on his triples. I think he hit 18 movement or 18 pull-up jumpers. There's those small sample size. I don't think there's a lot of correlation between these little combine things, and it's just cannon fodder probably, but everything trended positively for him because he completely ran roughshod over the NCAA, and then he tested better in virtually everything than people expected. He shot better. He was quicker. He was just as big. He's like 7'4", 300 pounds. Senior out of Purdue. He's a boilermaker. What are your thoughts on Zach Edey? He's Canadian. He's headed to France. Canadian. Yeah.
um, I like Edey. I think he could be a quality backup center pretty much immediately. He plays better at the level than I thought, especially like a couple years ago where he was pretty much like a non-factor there. And if you're okay with playing primarily drop, then he can do that and execute that fairly well. Offensively, he has really good touch. I think amongst the bigs, he has some of the best touch in general. He's going to draw a double team consistent just because of the size that he has, and the hope is that his passing can get to a point where that can be utilized as a weapon and help lead offenses, especially a bench offense in that facet. I have no confidence in him like developing a shot, and I know a lot of correlation is like the Brooke Lopez thing, which seems kind of like a
I've been complaining about the Brooke Lopez comp for like as long as it's existed. Brooke Lopez was an unbelievable mid-range shooter, a good free throw shooter. You could see like clear fluidity, and he wasn't a guy who had to like ramp up. He just started shooting threes and making them. He was clearly just a very talented shooter. He
yeah.
was not a project. He was just a guy who could always shoot threes, who didn't do it. And now everybody's like, well, Brook Lopez turned himself into a three-point shooter. It's like, no, the league turned a three-point shooting Lopez into a guy who doesn't shoot threes. That was what basketball was. He could always shoot them, and then he did.
Yeah, very skilled big.
I was told the Raptors picked up after he was waived by the Orlando Magic, Kem Birch. And he hit 4 corner threes, and everybody started singing about Brook Lopez. What are we doing?
Man, I remember that summer where Amir Johnson was just posting videos of him banging threes. I'm like, here it comes, new season. And it just like didn't happen.
It's that summer 3, Jack. Anyway, Zach Edey, I don't think he probably shoots the 3 really at the NBA level either. And will he ever shoot the 3 to the point that teams like give a shit? No way.
No, yeah, that's such a high plane. I think Boban comps are also pretty lazy. He's far more skilled as a post player. He has hook touch. He has counters within the post. So I think if you're committed to the way that he is best suited for him to play, I think selecting him in the 20s, getting a backup center that can play 10 to 15 minutes within the regular season is very valuable and leads to wins.
So the Boban thing, there's a seasoned reporter analyst I talked to in the media room in March. And we talked about the Boban comp. And this guy said, I don't get the Boban comps. And I said, yeah, I don't really get it either. He says, Boban's way more skilled than Edey. He's like, have you seen Boban? He's like, Boban can do it all. Boban is like a marvel. And his contention was that Boban is far more skilled than Edey. However, he doesn't pack weight the same way. And Edey moves better than Boban. I wasn't as bullish on Boban's talent or his touch and skills versus Edey, but I do think that Boban is probably underrated. That's not where I'm taking the conversation. We're not doing a Boban thing, but there is competing conceptions about Edey's skill level. I think it's quite high at his size. Is it so high that like the worries about how he processes doubles don't matter? Because we saw it 2014, Jayhawks, Embiid, escape dribble, swung it to the opposite corner. I know you remember that play. We didn't really see that from Edey, you know? No. And Embiid is still a guy who, you know, he kind of like, he's doubles can vex him a little bit. I don't know, but I think you're hitting the nail on the head here when you say like, there's minutes to be won by Zach Edey. And at 19, because I really don't think Edey's there at 31, at 19, you have to decide if he's there. You can probably, I think, Zach Edey is going to win NBA minutes for some years. Do you want to select a guy who you know will win NBA minutes, who you do have to worry a little bit about, like, well, what does closing games look like? Yeah. What do certain matchups look like? Are we going to see a guy get played off the floor and you're going to have to worry? Is this a guy who exists in a playoff rotation? These are the questions that people have to ask. However, I know there's some people who think he's not an NBA player at all, who think it's a bit of a gimmick. I think he's going to be like an NBA player and one who wins minutes. The other stuff has to progress naturally, and I guess we'll see. But any other thoughts on the big man out of Canada?
Big problems for the U.S. this summer. I'll say that the FIBA rules are they're fitted for his game. He should be able to win on the glass fairly often and cause havoc. And the Team Canada really needs that help. So I'm excited to see him in the summer playing actual NBA guys.
I've been waiting for this because there's always, you know, like Team Canada or Team USA will play some team and they're like, these guys play FIBA ball. They know it well. It fits their play style. And Zach Edey comes up. It's like, that's the guy who you don't worry about 3 seconds. You just plug him in the lane. Easy peasy. Offensive interference, just whacking the ball around. Like, could be something there. Jacoby Walter, you want to go there?
Yes.
Okay. So the stats for Jacoby Walter. He's a freshman out of Baylor. I think he was a top 15 recruit. 6'5", 195, 6'10", listed wingspan via the combine, which is good. That's nice to see. He's pretty electric, I find. Pretty good athlete. 14 and a half points, 4.4 rebounds, 1.4 assists. Here's the bad stuff. 37% from the field, 34% from three. He hit a lot of threes. He took a lot of threes. He takes a lot of free throws. He is quick. He's, to my mind, a guy who plays pretty well off the catch, but shot making, he gets in trouble. Like that last dribble comes a little bit too early. A lot of the times he's on his last step. He's like, oh, what the hell do I do? His shot selection as like a jump shooter is insane, which says, oh, this guy he's confident. He can take shots. He can hit shots, but he doesn't hit much of them. 34% three on like a pretty crazy volume. I feel pretty good about. It's the rest of the stuff that I'm like, ooh, you've seen more of Jacoby, so I'm curious on your thoughts.
Jacoby is one of those guys also that I'd be very happy if he fell.
Is he a Trey guy?
I wouldn't give him that, but
Were you thinking like I'm gonna be on TV someday with Dan Le Batard and there's gonna be like a little, it'll have like a little graphic,
just but Jacoby I think is one of the best, if not the best, moving shooter in the draft. He fits a lot of what the Raptors want to do.
The best movement shooter in the draft we're talking about
Oh
later.
Lord. But he shoots really well off the catch, and his initial instincts when coming off the catch, I like and I buy. The issue I think with him and where he probably lands is what happens after he puts the ball down on the court. The shot making and decision making isn't necessarily there from the mid range, and that often leads him to jumping early or flying into the lane where he probably has no business, and he doesn't have the requisite strength to finish at a high level, which is why you see the percentages being fairly low. But I'm really bullish on his movement skills. I'm really bullish on his fluidity. He gets in the lane and he has flashes of shot creation, and he tested really well in the combine. So I think that he has the requisite tools to become a decent defender. And if those parlay with like some of his decent playmaking skills, that bodes well into a starter. And if you have a situation where you have both him and Grady as movement shooters off of Scotty, it opens up the entire court and what they can do. And if both of them are able to play make, it creates easy opportunities for everyone else.
Okay, you're in a teaching position here. Like you said, decent playmaking. I did not come away with the same. So if you could sell me on that a little bit.
Yeah. So early on in the season, in that where he was playing his best, a lot of what allowed Misi also to play really well is him coming off the catch, him turning things into easy dump offs, things like that, where it led to him popping off, and he was getting shine within, say, top 10, top 15. I
We
think
had 20 in the first game, right? Like he came out
popped off
like
early in the season. I think what what led things probably astray for him in his season, probably nosediving, is that teams, and I'm sure you probably saw it, teams knew he wasn't able to finish within the lane. So it changed everything. They were able to show much higher when he put the ball on the floor. He wasn't really a threat to actually score, and that took away pretty much most of his playmaking. Like my thought process is if he puts on the size necessary, and I think he has the frame to do so, it opens up a bit more of his game. And if he's a better finisher in the lane, he has the instincts to play make.
if he had the guile of Cam Spencer. That's what I wonder about. We'll leave Cam Spencer for later. I like making the jokes though. Jacoby, I wondered about when I'm watching like when what I said at the start, like how often he's on his last step. I guess I see what you're saying at the start of the year when that last step was being rewarded with like a ton of rotation and he could pass out. Now there's just not as much.
Yeah.
And also like, yeah, you show a little bit higher, you make sure that the backside is protected and you make sure that like some of those dump offs to Missy, he has to go across his body when he's like catch and go left. He has to make a push past the corner.
Yeah.
He was definitely, he got put in a lot of awkward positions. But he is, of the guys we're talking about here, between Cam, Devin, Bronny, Jared, Edey, and Jacoby, I think he has the highest athletic ceiling.
Yeah.
Like he moves the best. Let's look at that movement on the other side of the floor. Defensively, thoughts.
Not a good defender currently. Like, I think instinctually, it just has a hard time, especially off the ball, knowing like where to actually be. But he's fairly quick laterally, and he shows effort. I think he has the ability to become a good defender one day. I just don't think that is like the total selling point on why you're drafting. You're drafting him for his ability to create gravity, him being this move and shooter that orbits off of your other players. Like defensively, I think that would be a plus. But I wouldn't say that it's something that you're buying on or guaranteeing on. I just like that he has the skills, and especially from like a lateral perspective.
He I found him to be pretty interesting there, especially like when he's sliding across the top and staying with a guy.
Yeah,
I really like that. But something that happened to him a lot and happens to a lot of players who are a little bit lighter is that when they slide, the other, especially some thicker college guards and wings, they can still kind of move you off the line so that they have a more direct line to the rim. That happened to him a lot. That's the kind of stuff that like a scout, because it doesn't matter what we say, it doesn't really impact anything, but a scout has to decide, is this a guy who's always going to lose the line to the rim, or is this a guy who puts on weight and suddenly when he slides it really means something,
yeah.
rather than a guy who's sliding and losing, a guy who's sliding and winning. I wonder about if he can make that change, because then guys who slide and win fit into defenses all the time. It's really really easy. And if you can slide and win and you have like tight, you work on your closeout footwork and you can make better decisions there, you can be a guy who helps in rotation a ton, even if you aren't the most heady, I guess, off ball defender. There's a lot of stuff that can go right for Jacoby. I look at him as like more of a ceiling pick,
Yeah, 100%.
but the floor like worries me a lot. Like I could see things going wrong there, maybe.
I think at like 19 or even 31, like one, the Raptors are in a position where they're probably not trying to be the most competitive from what it seems. But I think shooting and hitting on one of shooting and hitting on one of these picks are shooting and hoping actually on one of these picks are totally fine. Like they need ceiling type picks in order to get to where they want to go. I think increasing the floor of the team can be done through free agency, to be honest.
It's 12:44 a.m. Other teams are sending in their suggestions for what trade they would like. Here we are fielding many different trades, the whole world in front of us. 19, a thing of the past, but a player who could go, so much power, so much power. Cam Spencer lies ahead. Cam Spencer, a fifth-year senior, a guy who was caught up in the hubbub of COVID, out of UConn, a national champion. 6'4", 205. Has, of all the guys we're talking about, besides Edey, these the sexy stats. But keep in mind, this guy is older, and the protections of college basketball, the smaller court, they offer him help. There's a reason why a guy who has 14 points a game, 5 boards a game, 3.5 assists per game, 1.5 steals per game, and a guy who also had more than 2 steals a game at Rutgers, 48% from the field, 44% from three on like a pretty wild selection of shots. He like out of movement, off pull ups. He does a lot with it. He also shot 91% from the free throw line. The stats are sexy. The feet are slow. What are your thoughts on Cam Spencer?
Um, I I'll start with the good. There's a lot of good things that Cam Spencer does that translate well to the NBA. Really, really good shooter off movement. He can hit pull up threes. Really good off catch and shoot stuff. And I think of the movement shooters, he's one of the best playmakers in the draft. He, although he had a really big target in Klingen, Castle was a really good player in the dunker spot as well. He's able to use like the gravity and like how violent he is coming off of a lot of these movement catches, and he can decel, slow himself down, and lead that into playmaking opportunities that often led to clinging dunks, castle dunks as well. He also could turn those, stop, pivot, lead that into scoring opportunities, and have the defense rotate and make decisions from there, which is really high level for somebody within college. I think the caveat is one really slow feet, especially moving laterally. How does that translate into to playing long term and winning minutes, and can he survive on a bigger court? Also, the things that he does off of the catch, can he get to the spots necessary for his playmaking to open up? Because a lot of the things that he's doing and when he's decelerating, that's against an 18, 19-year-old player that one, he can use his size to bully when he isn't getting to his spot, and then two, they usually just aren't many. They aren't the most athletic players that he's going against. So if he isn't able to get into the nail and make plays from there, how effective is he overall? I think if you're looking at him as if he can shoot as well as like Sam Hauser is and offer some of that playmaking, then a viable NBA player. I just think at 31, that's probably too rich for me.
I think this is kind of where you get into like the value stuff. I think Cam Spencer's an NBA player from what I've seen. I agree with a lot of how you laid that out there. Um, the biggest problem is that, as you said, when he gets middle, you can see like he has some of the best craft in all of the NCAA. He's one of the best shooters coming out of the draft, if not the best. He is a guy who, when the ball touches his hands, makes the right decision, an elite decision, a really, really high level of time. It's just like when he gets middle and he has a guy on his back, if that guy isn't, as you said, an 18 or 19-year-old player and is instead like a gritty NBA guard, that guy probably can get back in front. Like he can get to the side and then he can slide back in front. How often is he going to actually be able to, you know, against a college team when they play at the level in the pick and roll and he has a wide manipulative dribble, which is a good thing, but like gets over the edge, has like the Rondo fake almost to get it wide, manipulate, and then one hand gather all the way to finish at the rim. Like, do those margins that he's finding at the college level, does he find them at the NBA level? Those types of ones, as a initiator, I think probably not. However,
Mm.
I think against moving defenses, how he kind of reads the floor, the fact that I do think he will shoot, and the fact that I think he is patient. Like, if a guy does catch up, if a guy's hurrying to catch up because they believe that Cam Spencer not only is a really good shooter, but has good touch for a floater or something,
Mm-hmm.
when they leap to get back into the play, that pump and swivel, I think, will be there in the NBA. It's just, I don't think as many options will be there as they were at college, but I think enough options for him to survive on offense and maybe even thrive next to other good players. Defensively, he is slow. His feet are slow. When I see him sliding, I see a guy like on a knife's edge trying to stay there. And there's that clip that our friend likes to point out where like he slides and the guy uses an escape dribble and he jumps out to him. It's not a good contest. Like he's there, but it's not an effective contest. There's there's room for him to get bullied physically. There's room for him to be outsped on that side of the
Yeah.
floor. And I wonder how much like gumption and awareness can get him on the defensive side of the floor instead of, as we see, what NBA teams are willing to do a lot of the times is like find the pre-switches, pick their guy, put him in the action. Will he be a liability? Probably. Will he overcome that to the point that like you get to enjoy the fruits of his offense? I think so. And that's why I think he's an NBA player.
That,
31, as we said, powerful position. Who knows? I do like Cam Spencer though.
that,
I don't
that's
know.
no, that's good. I think a lot of it for me is I don't think he's going to be able to win the strength battle when going downhill. It's I'm pretty sure like in terms of speed, he won't be able to get to his spot. But if he's able to actually separate with strength, that opens up a lot of his game, and he can still do a lot of the playmaking stuff that he does once he gets middle. But if he isn't able to overpower like your average guard, that like will be chasing him off a lot of the movement stuff that he's doing, I find it hard for him to get to the levels of what he was doing within UConn if he isn't able to win those bumps. Like Jaime Jaquez, not the fastest player in the world, but one with so much physicality. The player that I missed on last year. What wins with physicality so much that a lot of the things that he was doing with his playmaking and ability to finish within the lane opened a lot of things up, and he's probably a player in a redraft that goes top 10.
Yeah. And Cam just isn't as big as
Yeah.
Hawkins. What I wonder about, what really like rewards those things, is if Cam is a guy who is dangerous shooting from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he can shoot quickly, the fact that he can put the shot up and make it and is so efficient, rather than speed, the skill is what gets defenses, particularly
Mm-hmm.
his primary defender, to bite or to overreact. Now, who knows what that's going to be at the NBA level, because NBA teams, they're probably not going to react until you prove it.
Yeah.
And so the easiest path for Cam Spencer, I think, is that he gets run on a team and he makes shots, which could happen. And then the cat and mouse game starts. And he's pretty good at the cat and mouse game. But he's a guy who could go undrafted. He's a guy who could go, I don't know, like 45 to 60.
Yeah, I think that's
There's
his range.
who knows what happens with him. However, we have a friend who's a big Cam Spencer believer. I do love the Cam Spencer tape. Like, I love how he looks. He's a great one of the best college players in my mind. However, college isn't the NBA, and you have to parse those things out. There are things to worry about, but there's a lot to like. The last guy we talk about here, Jared McCain, one of the fingernail painters. We're waiting for one of those guys to pop the hell off. Who's the quarterback?
Oh, Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams. He's gonna turn it around for those guys, because everybody who was painting the fingernails, they haven't dominated yet. They have, because you know what I mean. Like Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman wore a wedding dress, but he was so damn good, nobody cared.
Yeah.
Jalen Green hasn't scored 28 points per game, but if he did, nobody would care.
Oh, yeah.
Jared McCain and Jalen Green, Caleb Williams, these guys can chart the course for nail painting liberties. Freshman out of Duke. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. Small wingspan, about even. 14 points per game, 5 boards, 2 assists, 46% from the field, 41% from three. One of the best movement shooters in the draft, if not the best. He and Cam, they were really fantastic. And like Cam is like clever movement into a shot. McCain can just like sprint to a spot, catch, and fade and hit. He's very impressive there. We saw a lot of volume from downtown, a lot of movement, a lot of difficulty. And he also ran one of the plays that the Raptors love, which is that two players at the top. It's not pistol, but you throw it into a handoff. The guy who hands off comes off a flare running away from it. The Raptors ran it a bunch. They usually used it to get pick and roll reps, but for McCain, it becomes a possession to get a 3-point shot. He fits one piece of the playbook already. What do you think about Jared McCain?
Big fan. In terms of like shot making and especially on the angles that he could score, like one of the best within the actual draft. Um, I I think where I differ from a lot of people, I don't think he probably can be your main initiator. He isn't the organizer I think you necessarily want to be, especially because of his size.
Do
He
you
can't make
do you see a lot of people echo that sentiment?
yeah.
Wow. Because I don't pay much attention to it, and I didn't really see that at all. I'm surprised that people are taking that away. Wow.
I think it's like you look at certain players and then you see the constraints of within college, where a lot of the reads that you make are obviously like predetermined, especially because you have limited court space, and then this can propel if he shoots really well and he's able to put it on the floor. This can propel to him being able to play.
And if you don't listen to the coach, he'll come into your dorm room and like trash it or something. Like, you're benched. You know?
Like Tyrese Maxey, obviously he's not as fast. Tyrese Maxey, court opens up for him. He can play make a lot better than he did in college, for example. But obviously, I don't think the tools are the same.
That's McCain. I think most of what I saw was like a limit in the handle.
Yes.
Like the handle is not very manipulative. He's not. I've seen him try to go left, and like he works hard to like keep it protected and stay going left because he knows guys are sitting right. But even then, he's still like mostly getting in a 2-foot gather, and he wants to turn back over his left shoulder. but I do love how he attacks closeouts. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
really, really like that. And I think he is really quite strong out of the triple threat.
Yep.
I, I saw a lot of floaters. I saw a lot of like late gathers so he could get to the rim. I saw like bumps and finishes. It's not Devin Carter level. It's not AJ Mitchell level. These guys like have endless craft at the rim,
Yeah.
always finish at the very end of it. But McCain, I was pretty impressed with in how he got downhill. The conceit here, the big thing for you and I, at least when we're looking at this, is he's 6'3", 200 with an even wingspan.
Yeah.
He is so aggressively point guard sized, like so aggressively
Yeah.
point guard sized. But neither of us, it sounds like, by
Yeah.
point guard creation. There's a lot to like as as an off guard.
Yeah.
Miles McBride level stuff.
Yeah.
And that brings me to the question, because like Miles McBride is a guy who has had pretty good stretches of on-ball defense. Jared on defense, what's the thoughts?
I don't think he's the athlete you probably want to be. I feel like he's going to be Miles McBride, for example. But I think he holds up well enough on that end, and he has the strength to end up becoming somewhat neutral to maybe a bit positive as a defender long term. And if he's able to shoot the way that he can and be a connective piece offensively with his passing, I think the defense won't matter as much as long as he provides somewhat neutral value, because the things that he can do with his craft, get in the lane, hit floaters, I think to some degree his game is going to open up with more space. And if he's I would one thing I would like to see is probably more movement stuff from him overall. But if he's able to do those things, I think he could be a starter in the league, to be honest.
He is interesting because like the top 20 players who go in a draft are top 19 for the Raptors' sake.
Yeah.
Not everybody of those 19 sticks around
Yep.
past their rookie contract. Very few of them end up playing like 10 years. Jared McCain is a guy who, like, if you shoot the ball like that and you attack closeouts like that, there's just always going to be a team that figures out, if you are deficient on defense, how to hide you, one,
Mhm.
but two, how to like get you attacking rotated defense. And sometimes that's really dependent on how good the star is who you play with. But there's like a good NBA player there, I think. I don't know how good, but I don't think McCain ends up falling to 19.
Yeah.
As we talked about at the start, a lot of these guys could go higher than 19. Many people thought a lot of the players we talked about in last episode could go later than 19, later than 31. Jared is really interesting,
Yeah. I
and he
like
shoots the hell out of the ball.
when I was thinking of these guys that we're gonna cover today, I thought he was the most awkward fit probably on the Raptors. If like in
Mm,
terms of like scalability, him next to Emmanuel Quickley is really tough to see, but especially on both ends of the ball, to be honest. And if you're probably paying Emmanuel Quickley $100 million this off season.
my prediction was 4 years, 110 million.
It's not my money. All right. But you're you're hoping he develops that on ball skill, so you're probably looking for the person next to him to like have the requisite skills to hide some of his deficiencies on the ball. And I don't think you want Jared to be your main point of attack guard.
Okay. So since he's the last prospect we talk about, let's rank them by fit. So Jared, you think is the most awkward fit, but this will be the last thing before we get out here. There's Edey, there's Bronny James, Cam Spencer, Devin Carter, Jacoby Walter, Jared McCain. What do
Mm.
you think the ranking of easiest to least?
Easiest is Devin Carter. That's super easy. He could play next to Emmanuel quickly tomorrow, and you could see some idea of how that would work defensively, at least. I think next would probably be Jacoby Walter. He does a lot of the same things of why they drafted Grady to some degree, so that would make sense. I think you could come off your bench and replace a lot of the minutes. I'm assuming Grady's going to start this year, but who knows? A lot of the things that he does within the actual offense. Third would probably be Edey. He'd be a change of pace for the Raptors. He could be their backup center. He probably play next to Kelly also, to be honest, and that would be a nice 1-2 punch. Um, Fourth would be Spencer. I'm sure Darko is banging the table for him because he does like when you think of like point five basketball, like that's what he does. Like he makes those decisions really quick.
He's like the inverse of Ochai.
Yes, yes.
Like where Ochai is elite, Cam struggles the most. Where Cam is elite, Ochai struggles. Although friend James tells me he's elite playing off of too.
Yeah, I would say Spencer fourth, Bronny fifth, and I think Bronny fits very well. Like if the tools that like I see work, it's just a matter of are they going to work. Like if he is able to be a three and D guard and guard ones and twos very effectively, really nice fit with along with most of the team. And then last, obviously, would just be McCain, just because of his size.
Okay, so I'll rank them. My ranking is different, so might as well do it. Number one, I will go with Devin. Agreed. Uh, it's good to have good guards,
Mm.
and I don't see anything wrong with the fit. I
Yep.
only see positives, really, although he's not going to be there 19. But I think he's number one. Number two, I think is Zach Edey, and because I think that I'll, high post passing has become especially the reads that are baked into the
Mm.
offense, I think is overrated. I think a lot of bigs can do it.
Mm.
And especially with Zach Edey having a lot of clearance to like make decisions, I think if it was, it's not against a double because a
Yes.
double is not static. A double is kind of dynamic and
Mhm.
teams will change where it comes from and the team has to respond and everything kind of looks new, right? But when the Raptors are running an action, Edie just having the ball out of like horns or something like that and having to make, okay, if this happens, I make that. If this happens, I make that. I think that he can step in and like play make a little bit. And I think there is the fit next to Kelly. I think that if he's having a good run of form, you get to see how he plays like at the level in drop. And I think that the Raptors bench, which is kind of starved for offense, getting a little bit extra juice of just like, okay, well, we'll stack a shooter and Zach on the same side. We'll ask him to get offensive rebounds. I think that that is a pretty good fit. It doesn't mean I think he's the second best player here, but
Yeah.
I do think it's a good fit. Then I'm probably going, yeah, like Jacoby slash Bronny.
Mm.
I'll lean on how you said it because as you laid it out, I think like actually, you know what, 3-4-5 is just a flex. I don't care between Jacoby, Bronny, and Cam.
Yeah.
That's but Jared McCain, I think it is awkward, especially next to Quickly, and Quickly doesn't make decisions for your future. Like his presence doesn't move you away from if you love a guard prospect, but it's just a tough sell there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of where it's at. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
$110 million sure is informative on your future. I'll tell you that.
What he's gonna be there,
Yeah.
but if you really like a guard,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Emmanuel Quickly was the 25th overall pick.
Yeah.
Maxey was 20th. You know, like good guards pop up all the time. They just need usage, and then all of a sudden, like if Quickly makes $110 million over 4 years, he'll be like the 37th highest paid guard or something like that. It's just so many guards make money.
Yeah.
You
In
know,
good position.
this
I think yeah. I think it's depend. Like I would if say Topic medicals were terrible, falls to 19, I would take him, and he can't defend at all. So I guess
yeah.
that's fair.
Guards just get paid, like I know like Kevon Looney, we'll see how much he gets paid. Shout out to S. He calls him a top 10 center. I guess, but yeah, that's a joke. My apologies. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. For anybody who's looking forward, I think we'll do one or two more of these before the actual draft, which will bring us around. I know, goddamn, 50 prospects they want us to look at. We'll end up doing closer to 20, probably 25, maybe. And then after the draft, I think Blake and I will do some sort of like free agency extravaganza episode, which we typically do every year. So we'll do that and just look forward to more. Anything you want to say, Trey?
Peace, love, and soul.
Jesus. That's you. Yeah. Ooh, I'll say. So Trey started rock climbing with us. He
Yeah.
climbed his first V3 yesterday.
Oh man,
Big man, big trouble.
it was the manliest I've ever felt. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. It really does. It connects to like my ape brain, like my like ooga booga caveman brain. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just climbing, I'm going up, and I touch the top thing. It connects to something deep inside of me.
Yeah, I posted the video yesterday, and a couple people messaged me from my work where they mentioned like that doesn't look that high. I was like, the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that went into that climb, you have no
That's
idea.
the climb on a rock climb. The route videos never do it
Yeah,
justice. Especially like if you go up to the hold, it's like a hold could be like this.
yeah,
It's just like nothing to grip. You're just like going like that's what you get.
yeah.
Maybe that. And but everyone assumes like, "Oh, it's a good hold." It's not. It's the worst thing you've ever held in your life. And you have to fight, claw and scratch to get up the wall. And now Trevon knows that just as well as the rest of us. All right, everybody. We'll see you at the draft party. That'll be fun, and we'll have a couple podcasts before that. All right. Peace, soul, and love. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day, and goodbye.